"Oh, madam, it's a girl," the doctor said with disappointment. "Next time, a prince will be born," Queen Victoria confidently replied. She felt a sense of disappointment when Vicki was born and never quite overcame the coldness in her relationship with her eldest daughter. Although not a tender mother, the English monarch was a responsible parent. The child who had come into the world would become one of the most intelligent and enlightened women of the 19th century. For the first year of her life, Victoria Adelaide Mary Louise was considered the heir to the English throne until her brother was born. This was the greatest injustice of her life. Clever Vicki was eager for new knowledge, while Bertie easily skipped lessons. By the age of 5, the princess was fluent in several languages, while the future king indulged in laziness. Their father personally created a schedule for Victoria that began at 8:20 in the morning and ended at 6 in the evening. At Osborne House on the Isle of Wight, where the family spent most of the year, a separate cottage was built for the children to ensure that no distractions would interrupt their studies. The great exhibition organized by Prince Albert, Victoria's father, attracted numerous guests from around the world to England. Among them were crowned heads, including Prince Wilhelm of Prussia and his 2 children. His son, Friedrich, struggled with English, so Vicki was asked to help him. The princess spoke Goethe's language perfectly, which utterly charmed the royal guests. During their 4-week visit, Friedrich and the English princess grew very close. Although they were still just children, a strong affection clearly blossomed between them, leading to correspondence after Friedrich returned to Prussia. The Prussian court disapproved of this closeness. Friedrich was being prepared for a different match, a Grand Russian princess. However, Friedrich Hohenzollern insisted on his feelings. Soon after, he returned to England to see Vicki again. The 15-year-old princess reciprocated his feelings, and her parents had no objections. Queen Victoria saw the marriage as a tremendous advantage. Her daughter could serve as a conduit for English interests on the continent. She is even said to have advised her daughter before the wedding night, "Close your eyes and think of England." The engagement was announced. The Prussian family sourly suggested holding the celebrations in Berlin, but once again, Queen Victoria's iron will prevailed. Her eldest daughter must marry in England. Although the process was slow, taking almost 2 years, the wedding was eventually held at St. James's Palace in London. The British Parliament allocated £40,000 sterling for the princess's dowry. The Queen also took control of the young couple's departure. Vicki was accompanied for a time by a close friend of Victoria's, who reported on every step the girl took. In time, the princess herself continued this practice. Several thousand of her letters to her mother have survived to this day. She sought support back home, as her new neighbors were not particularly welcoming, but Victoria remained, first and foremost, a queen, and only then a mother. Her letters were filled with advice on how her daughter should behave, the traditions she needed to uphold, and overall, Vicki was expected to safeguard English interests. However, over time, thinking of England became increasingly difficult. The differences in political stances were becoming more pronounced. Sometimes, the situation became almost comical. Vicki wanted to create gardens in the English style, but the Prussian gardeners insisted on the Italian approach. This led to a full-blown Anglo-Prussian garden war, with witnesses even testifying against the princess in court. Official duties consumed much of her time. Balls sometimes lasted until 2 in the morning, and the next day, she had to greet arriving relatives. It's no wonder that Vicki's first pregnancy was challenging, especially since the doctors were not very experienced. The son she gave birth to, the future Emperor Wilhelm II, suffered an injury during birth, resulting in one of his arms being significantly shorter than the other in adulthood. The King of Prussia controlled Vicki and her husband's every move. Fortunately, their relationship was very tender and forbade her from leaving the country. Even the English Times commented at the time, "It is hard to imagine a more difficult position than that in which the princess and her husband found themselves." When the King of Prussia died, his brother, Friedrich's father, inherited the crown. From that moment on, Vicki and her husband became the heirs to the Prussian throne, and every step they took was scrutinized under a microscope. Her mother-in-law criticized her even for her choice of carriage. To her new family and subjects, she still remained an Englishwoman. When her son Sigismund died, Vicki found no support from either her mother or her husband's family. Queen Victoria was entirely consumed by her own grief over the death of Prince Albert, while the Prussian court insisted that the princess quickly resume her duties. Vicki was utterly bewildered. After the death of his father, Friedrich became both the King of Prussia and the Emperor of Germany. Vicki's status was now equal to that of her mother. She too became an empress, but it lasted only for 99 days. Exactly that long after, her husband followed his father in death. Now Wilhelm II, the young man with the shorter arm, was to rule. At last, she could forget many of her daily responsibilities and live a little for herself. Vicki donned mourning attire, just as her mother did until the end of her days, and moved to a country palace. Now, nothing hindered her from visiting London and indulging in the activities she loved: gardening, reading, and painting. She fell seriously ill, and in August 1901, Vicki passed away. In her honor, a mountain in Canada, as well as varieties of begonia and rose, are named after her.